Jake, good to see you. It's been a while since we've spoken, actually. So thank you for making a bit of time because I know you're super busy. I wanted to kick off by asking you about something that we talked about a while ago because it's a particular thing that kind of interests me. You were saying to me that you're going to replace all the data scientists. I thought,
Uh,
okay, I'll believe that when I see it. So, what did you mean when you said that, and why is that? I mean, just explain that in the context of what your business does.
as with any good media man, a provocative start. I appreciate your time, Paul, and thank you for having me today. Um, we're definitely not going to replace all data scientists, but I think that their jobs will change. I think we've seen the job of the bank teller change when the automated cash machine came in, and you're seeing jobs change because of technology. This is a tale
Mm.
as old as time, and maybe horses aren't a part of public transportation the way that they used to be, but I don't think data scientists will ever disappear. What will change is data scientists at football clubs and sporting organizations no longer needing to be also software developers and data engineers and five other things on top of their normal skill set. They will go back to being football researchers, which is what they're supposed to be there for.
Yeah. And I mean, just explain for people that don't know about Gemini Sports. I mean, just explain why I mean, the role that data plays in what you do, because it's kind of well, I mean, maybe I've got this wrong. Tell me if I've got this wrong, but it seems to me it's the next step on from Moneyball.
Yeah, well, Moneyball was just embracing data as an initial concept, and I wish we didn't call it data. I wish we just called it information. It wouldn't sound so mystical or mysterious, and it's just information. I often say the best data point that a team could use to make a player trading decision is what a really good scout had to say.
Mm.
So for me, data is not interesting. Making good decisions is.
Mm.
What Gemini Sports does is helps football clubs and sporting teams overall win the transfer market and make better player trades by providing the ultimate decision makers, the executives, with a single source of truth that's actually easy enough for them to use in the form of a mobile application. So, whatever the information source is, be it intel from an agent, finances, contracts, notes from scouts, reports from scouts, or yes, data, we're just about helping people be organized with a real, authentically modern source of record that's actually easy enough for the executive user.
And to come back to your point about changing the way jobs work, I mean, presumably it will change the way scouts work, will it? Because it equips them with better tools. Is that a fair summary?
100%. And we're not anymore in this era where scouts are working on pen and paper, but a few of them still are. And many
Mm.
of them are, this is going to sound scandalously inefficient, but most are still doing this. Many of them are using the Notes app on their phone and then going home and transporting that over to a desktop app that's siloed that nobody but scouts look at. And then somebody has to summarize what all of those things said into a PowerPoint presentation that the executive decision maker is viewing and wielding, and that's just not good enough. So in our application, you can just open your phone, leave a voice note, and that produces the scouting report in the format that your executives have decided on. And those reports, when there's multiple of them, get summarized in an AI summary onto the player page or onto an executive report for the ultimate decision makers. So scouts are going from very inefficient 3 or 4 step processes of producing their reports into genuinely one click to do
Mm.
their job. And that means that they can spend more time conveying their subject matter expertise, scouting more players or the right players more in depth.
Mm. And how did you? I mean, it's a bit of an odd career move, isn't it, to be collecting data about sports people? I mean, how did you? If you like, what started you on this journey?
Well, we're just providing the toolkits for the decision makers at these clubs, Paul. I worked in professional sports for 9 years when I was doing my PhD with the New Zealand All Blacks rugby program for the 2016 Olympic Games. I had to learn three computer programming
Right.
skills, so three coding languages: MATLAB, SQL, and Python. And I was terrible at it. And I said, this is silly. There's got to be a better way. We've got to stop the over reliance on analysts for any information that we need at an executive decision making level. We have to leave those people alone to do their jobs and allow us to do ours on the devices that we're always living, which is our phones. We should stop requiring people to build computer skills. Since then, obviously, AI has changed the world,
Yeah,
and you and
yeah,
I
yeah.
can go and use Claude and build a website in a few seconds, which only boosts our prospects because people need to do more faster. People need to achieve greater things, and the information infrastructure behind that becomes increasingly important. So ultimately, I had a problem as a professional, and I decided to find some smart people to help me fix it.
And you mentioned AI there. I mean, what's the AI play here? I mean, just explain that for people who are maybe, I mean, not everyone will be familiar with the world of sports. I mean, what's the AI? I mean, what impact does AI have on how you do things?
Well, let's think of AI as like any other technology in that it can serve a few specific purposes: saving time,
Yeah.
getting more done, or finding information that's not feasible for a human to find, or taking action that would take a human way too long, especially in a specialized, skilled manner. So we're moving, and we have moved, but football's not quite there yet, beyond the question and answer chatbot phase of this AI revolution. We really moved beyond about a year ago. It's just about people catching up on the product front. Now we're in the agentic era where the machines are taking action for you. So in the Gemini Sports app, and this is the very beginning, yes, you've got recommendations. Yes, you've got all sorts of automations, but that's typically just machine learning. It's not really AI. But you've got summaries of the players. You've got a chatbot, of course, but you've also got the ability to just open your phone and say, hey, Bob, go watch John Smith. Go write a report on John Smith. Go add John Smith to a watch list. Go produce a report on John Smith, and the AI can do that. Now it can make a website for you, an executive report for you. And so these automations are coming in very powerfully, but also we talk about the language extraction for scouting reports and the text extraction for contracts. So our customers put their player contracts and transfer agreements into our application, and that automatically parses the contract clauses. So you get automated notifications on contingencies, bonuses, and all
Right.
sorts of things that you need to know. Like if I've sold you a player and that player hits a goal bonus and you owe me more money now, I don't have to find out on Twitter. I just get a notification and I produce the invoice.
Right. And I mean, I can see why that's valuable to people. Um, I mean, is it presumably just, I mean, who uses this? I mean, there must be, I mean, we talked originally about data scientists. Well, they're not the users here, are they? Is it purely scouts? Is it clubs? Is it families? Is it, I mean, who are
No,
the
it's
users?
sporting directors. The sporting directors who run the football club. So the directors of football
Right.
who are making the ultimate decisions, and the scouts use it and feed up to them. And the analysts use the API typically in the collaborative way that, like I said, most other technologies, in fact, every other technology that I've seen, just creates another silo, whereas we bring the disparate parts of an organization together. But when you think about our mobile apps specifically, obviously we're desktop and API as well. When you think about our mobile app specifically, the director of football is the primary user. Sometimes the CEO, CFO, and team owner as well.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, because will the director make the decision on their own? Probably not.
No, but their ability to get the information from their colleagues that they require to make that
Mm.
decision is way, way, way too laborious right now. It's so limited, it's so challenging, and people spend so much of their days just saying, "Where are we at?" or "Go get me that information." Now they can just open their phone and find it.
Yeah. So it's really about improving decision making, isn't it? That's really the nub of it. And it's
Correct.
not just decision. I mean, it's if you like it. I mean, I would say they're fairly high stakes decisions in that world. I mean, it could be expensive buying or selling a player, presumably.
Could have 100 million in knock-on effects, even for a small club.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's say you make the wrong transfer, you blow your budget, you can't sign another player you thought you could, you're not in compliance with the league regulations or just your own budget. Then you lose games. Then you have to pay off the coach. Then you have to pay off the sporting director, and then you get relegated, and
Yeah.
that might cost you 250 million
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah. Well, I hope they think your subscription fees are cheap comparatively.
They're
So
getting there.
let me ask you. I mean, you talked about how you kind of got onto this journey, and I totally get how important the product is. Where are you going with it? I mean, what is it you want to achieve here? I mean, give us a sense of the direction of travel. Is it purely you're going to stick with soccer, or I mean, where are you going?
Well, first, we want to change the way that football clubs do transfers. We want to change the way that they operate the transfer market. We want to change the way that directors of football do their jobs. Next, we want to move into other sports, probably college football next, but also cricket has a huge
Yeah,
opportunity.
yeah,
Really, any team sport has a need for executive club management. And if you look at the NCAA and the recent changes with NIL, the NCAA player transfer portal is perfectly analogous to the FIFA transfer market, but analogous to nothing else that's existed in North American sports before. So they need help.
Right. Okay. So it's about fixing problems. That's what you're saying.
Any good business should be.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. No, I was just trying to. I mean, I suppose sometimes I struggle to think about soccer as a business. I mean, it clearly is a business, and probably
Well,
should think about it as a business. I think about it as an
it is,
exercise
yeah.
in fun and entertainment
No,
and
I appreciate
physical.
you raising it, Paul, because
Yeah.
it's a big reason that it's a big reason that our business is so well timed to be coming into the market because there's institutional capital flooding football. And so look at Apollo buying Atletico Madrid recently. There are real sophisticated investors buying up clubs. They're no longer just family offices with a lot of
Mm.
fans, right? They're now real businesses being run with serious P&L. And the player trading market is just asset management. It's just like a hedge fund. And so clubs who are taking this seriously know that they need real technology to do it.
Yeah, yeah, and it will add huge amounts of value because that data that you'd be able to supply them with, they probably couldn't get it nearly as quickly or nearly as accurate as it would be as they get it from you. Is that fair?
Well, they don't get the data from us, so they buy the data, and they have scouts, but they're not making any use of it in any way that's actually
Yeah,
efficient.
that's what I meant actually. It's about how
Yeah,
you
yeah,
use
yeah.
it.
The information that they're getting to make their decisions, it's incredibly disorganized right now. But nobody's had a solution for what to do with it. They often try and build their own in-house applications, which is almost exclusively a disaster.
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask you, how do you, I mean, you've talked about what you do. I mean, let's just talk about how you're going to make those things happen. I mean, how do you feel about being the CEO of a business like this? Because it's right at the leading edge of what's happening in that world.
It's a lot of fun. And some entrepreneurs come into it from a business degree background or being an early stage startup employee. I had a bit of a non-traditional journey. I often joke that I'm like the triple minority of being a solo, non-technical first time founder. And I love it. I love every second of it. Right. I was a practitioner. Every single thing I did before this was work for professional sports teams in my
Right.
career. The exception, though, interestingly, was working for a sports tech startup out of Australia. And at the time, it was very difficult, lifestyle, personal, mental health wise. But being one of the first 10 employees for a startup that went from 3 founders to 50 people in under 18 months was incredibly, incredibly educational.
Yeah.
And so when I worked for Valid Performance based in Brisbane, I'm so eternally grateful for some of the founders there, people like Chris Rowe, who really helped me understand the growing pains in getting a company off the ground, how customer success is a lot harder than sales, and how having the right people around you is the most important thing.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. And what would you say? I mean, given where you want to go with this, what would you say are, I mean, you used the phrase growing pains a second ago, but what would you say are the big challenges that you face in terms of getting from where you are to where you want to be?
Something that fascinates me recently is how getting people to actually be collaborative and be on the same page and work together efficiently is extraordinarily difficult.
And how are you going to fix that? Because you're absolutely right. Well, what are
Yeah.
you going to do about that?
Yeah, well, firstly, I'm very encouraged by it because I think if it's difficult for us as a 12 or 13 person company, the 600 people companies are going to mess so much up and move so slowly, we're going to be able to lap them.
Yeah.
So, what I've done recently, and this might not be a popular answer, is I've just hired more senior people. When you're a very early stage startup, you hire kids, you hire people who are happy to get any cool job working in a cool startup, and you're saving a lot of money doing it. And we've had some incredible, incredible young professionals come through this business, and they're working at some of the best football clubs in the world now, doing really cool things with their career. And I'm obviously eternally grateful for them. But what I've noticed now is that heuristic. One of our engineers actually said to me once that junior talent's more expensive than senior talent. And what I notice is that I'd rather have is sometimes as a founder you can kind of lazily just want more staff, just throw money at the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
And what I've learned to do, Paul, is actually have fewer people, a bit leaner, bit more maybe stretched, but fewer senior people who can just get it done, and who need no babysitting, who know how to collaborate with each other, who have thick skin, they can bounce back from mistakes. It's not to say no junior talent can do that. We've got amazing people working here,
Mm.
but senior talent who you can just say, this is what I want achieved, and then you don't hear from them again until it's done or until they need one final decision from you. That can change your life.
Mm. I mean, I guess the other, I mean, what you're saying to me is that also kind of frees up the bottleneck, doesn't it?
It does. Right now, I'm the bottleneck for
Mm.
too much, and so as I knock those items down one by one, I say, this is what I'm expecting. Go build a new website, right? And even just moving from needing several hours of my focused input, each of 5 steps along the way to get a new website done, moving that to 10 minutes of input twice along the process, it's huge in its second order effects for the business.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I mean, I forget what the name of the book is, but that thing about theory of constraints, that the business can only move as fast as its slowest piece. I
Right.
mean, my experience is that that's absolutely right. So if you can free
Absolutely
that
right.
up, it
Yeah.
just makes everybody's life better, doesn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. Let me ask you about, um, you mentioned a second ago about making mistakes. I mean, what sort of mistakes have you made and what sort of impact have they had?
How much time have you got? I
Probably not long enough to cover all
Yeah,
of them,
not
would be
long
my
enough,
guess.
Paul. Yeah. Um, I think the three biggest mistakes I have made are um, believing I could stretch thinner than I could. So, I've spent, I appreciate the heuristic of, run the company, run sales, or run investor relations. Pick one.
Mm,
And if you're really lucky and you're a really effective founder and you're really maniacal about your time, you can manage two for about 3 months, no
mm,
longer.
mm,
And I've tried to manage all three for up to a year and failed. So that's one, is trying to stretch thinner than you can. Two would be listening to bad advice from investors. So, look, I believe every single one of our investors has all the best of intentions and authentically cares about me and about the company. But it doesn't mean that their advice is sound, and it doesn't mean their advice is relevant or applicable or makes sense for the day in which it's given, or that they're on the same page or are going to be accountable to that advice
mm,
when the
mm,
consequences are faced. And so I think it's a pretty classical mistake that a first-time founder will make, is taking all of that advice at face value. Um, and the third one is people mistakes. I think everyone makes people mistakes.
mm,
It's very easy to make hires in a rush when you need that role. It's very easy to be convinced by someone who interviews very well. It's very easy to put people on a pedestal based on their career achievements, not really think about their actual fit with the company or with the needs, or to not hear when someone was really communicating that they weren't as good of a fit as you might want them to be.
mm.
Um, and maybe waiting too long to fire someone. So just all the classical people mistakes. Sometimes when I walk the dogs at night and think, oh, one day I'll write a memoir about all my learnings, and then I think I'd just be giving the exact same advice that's already out there. It's just that you have to go learn those lessons yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When you learn it yourself, it's a lot more powerful, isn't it, than
It's a
just
lot more
listening to somebody
powerful.
else talk about it. I mean, hearing people talk about it is pretty useful, but when you make the mistake and realize
Yeah.
what you've done, it's very powerful. That's been my experience. You mentioned investors there. I mean, my experience was that when you get investors involved, that quite a lot of things change. I mean, what changed from your perspective when you got investors on board?
I think that venture capital is over romanticized and most people shouldn't raise venture capital.
Mm,
And I raised my first money during the zero interest rate phenomenon era, where raising VC money was the sexiest thing around. And I mean, you still see it now, but back then, especially, there were a lot more headlines about raising big financing rounds than there were about revenue milestones, which
mm,
is all backwards. And so I really, I'm pretty decent at fundraising, better at it than selling my product, and so I leaned into, I fell in love with that process, to my own detriment, and I got a lot of cooks in the kitchen, a lot of people on the cap table, and it was all very exciting. So you go through a half dozen board meetings and the ups and downs and the pivots, and people fall in and out of love with your company, and they do or don't have changing mandates at their own firm and how they're going to treat you or think of you or manage you as an asset. And maybe people leave their firms and you get in someone new who doesn't know you as well or has a totally different approach to things. And so maybe I thought that the process of working with investors was going to be a lot more linear than it turned out to be. And realizing that, I mean, we all know intellectually that business is business, but no matter how many great dinners you might have with someone or great conversations you might have had with someone, they're making a business decision about you, and they probably have
Yeah.
99 other ones to make about similar assets. And it's harsh to say you're just a number, but that's kind of the reality. And one of my all-time favorite quotes about life was when Guy Ritchie got interviewed on Joe Rogan's podcast some years ago, and he said the phrase "don't hate the player, hate the game" is all wrong. He said, "You're in the game, mate, so you may as well play it. Learn how to play it,
Mm.
love playing it, because you're there and you don't have a choice." And so I think I went on a bit of a journey of becoming frustrated and jaded with the process of a young founder being overcoached by venture capitalists, to realizing that is what it is, and it's up to me to manage it appropriately.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned decision making a second ago. I mean, what sort of decisions weigh heaviest on you? I mean, because my experience is that as you get bigger, the decisions that land on your desk get more complicated because they're the ones that nobody else wants to deal with. That's been my experience. I mean, how do you
Yeah.
feel about making those decisions with a bunch of investors looking over your shoulder, if you like, and a bunch of
Yeah.
staff that are wondering why? What's your
Yeah.
take on that? And what sorts of decisions weigh heaviest on you?
When we made our product pivot from more of an analytics automation platform to a mobile app focused around player trading with a specific focus on soccer to begin, um, I should have cut my staff down by about 75%. And instead, it took me about 6 months to cut the staff down by half in a very slow and awkward manner. And I should have just made one sweep and gotten it over with and ripped the
Yeah,
band-aid.
yeah.
And I thought I could get away with it the way I did, and we probably lost. Well, I'm not going to quantify it, but we lost a lot by doing it that way. And I wish I'd been more decisive. And I don't think I was pain averse, but I think I was fooling myself about how quickly we could turn the ship. So that's one. Um, I had a very difficult executive decision where I had to fire someone who was very central for the company. And I mean, I made the decision in under 9 months, so I didn't deliberate too much, but I probably knew that I should have done that 4 months earlier.
Mm,
And again, could have saved time there. So classic personnel decisions and how agonizing they are. I think the other one was narrowing down into one sport is again these heuristics that you can read, but then you have to live them out. Is trying to be everything for everyone and throwing crap at the wall and hoping something sticks is not a good way to find product market fit.
no.
And so we were pursuing every sport for a long time, and it was great because it made us look busy. We had so many leads, but we weren't getting enough deals done, and when we did, they weren't even aligned well. So I think the theme here is just decision velocity and recognizing that turning any proverbial ship is going to take longer than you think, and therefore you should be more decisive than you're comfortable.
Mm. I mean, there's a famous saying, isn't there? The lion only chases one gazelle.
Exactly, Paul.
And it's actually a really important discipline, I think. I mean, I don't know about you, but I suffer from shiny object syndrome. I get distracted by things that interest me and then find out months later that I've lost track of what I should be doing, because I didn't focus on the right thing. And it's very easy to do, I think, sometimes. In terms of where the business has got to get to, what would you say are the big challenges that you now face?
Now we're running into the scaling challenges. So
Yeah,
I always love these phrases like customer success is harder than sales. Well, sales is damn hard, but then you realize customer success is pretty hard too. Going from 0 to 1 is really hard, but
yeah.
scaling is presenting its own challenges. So here we are. And I think, it's that classic moving from a place where customer success is myself to it's someone else and I have the 20% touch to a customer might only see me quarterly. And I need to become okay with that. And our customers need to become okay with that. And and so hiring really trustworthy people for that space is proving a challenge, and we cannot cut any corners there. We actually have just lost one of our key people, our main customer success person, to one of our customers, to one of our most important customers, and it's I'm super happy for all parties, and he goes with our best wishes. But it's funny because those kind of things can happen. If you have great people, they're going to get poached, and so I think these challenges of scale are critical. Where if you're 5 or 6 people and you need someone to run marketing, anything that happens in that realm, PR, a website, anything that's adjacent is going to fall on that person's desk. Now we get an idea, we get a new project stream coming in that's related to marketing, and I think, well, there's 3 different people I can bring this to, and I don't want to slow us down by bringing it to all of them. So those are really fun challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, plenty to keep you occupied there. On that point, I mean, would you say that you have been stretched by the process of growing the business? I mean, or is it something that kind of came easy to you, perhaps? I mean, my experience was that the bigger we got, the more bloody difficult it was. I mean, have you found it stretching
Yeah,
as you've grown?
absolutely. But I think it's two things are true at the same time here. So I've been stretched far beyond what I knew I was capable of, and
Yeah.
then some. Um, but I think one of my redeeming qualities is stubborn stamina. And so I'm not going to say I didn't notice it or didn't feel it. That would be a ridiculous claim, but it's kind of all I know. I don't right throwing in the towel or cutting corners or failing at something is not something that's in my repertoire, in my vocabulary. And so I've been able to exhibit an extraordinary stamina, often to the detriment of my own health.
Mm.
But um, I try and make a point of never complaining about something that I signed myself up for.
Yeah, you've chosen to do it, haven't you?
I've chosen to do it.
Yeah, on that note, I mean, one of the things that most CEOs say to me is that building a business is a bit like riding a roller coaster. You know, there are good days, there are bad days, there are things that go well and things that don't go well. I mean, what is it about this particular game that you're in? What is it that motivates you to kind of bounce out of bed in the morning and kind of get stuck in, you know, because it's a tough gig, isn't it, building a business? I mean, what is it that motivates you?
Yeah, I'm really authentically motivated by changing an industry, changing the way that people work, feeling like I've made an impact. When we're on this earth, we have so few opportunities to have an impact beyond our immediate sphere. And I authentically care about the poor way that teams are trying to manage their transfer markets.
And
And I
why? I
want
mean,
to be,
just that's a very interesting point. Why do you care so much? What is it about changing that that is important to you? I mean, other than the obvious.
I have no idea. It's just it's just something that bothers me. And it's something that I've witnessed, and maybe it's that I believe I can change it, right? There's plenty of problems. I'm not
Mm,
going to solve peace in the Middle East, right? And, there are plenty of problems that I care about that I cannot personally impact. And this is one that I believe I can. So maybe it's that. Maybe it's the opportunity bias that I see a problem that I also have a very specific thesis on how to solve it, right? And
mm,
and and I see, I didn't mention earlier, look, there's plenty of products around this space that are trying to help teams be clever in the market. So what? Being clever is commoditized. All the information's out there, all the algorithms are out there.
yeah.
That's table stakes. I care about helping people solve this problem by helping them be better organized, which is really unsexy, right?
Mm,
But none of us were standing around saying, I often say this, none of us were standing around saying, gosh, I hate taxis. I really wish a stranger would come pick me up in their car. But we all signed up for Uber because it created specific convenience and reduced friction in a number of ways none of us were even thinking about. And so I really relish this kind of, I don't want to say solving a problem people didn't know that they have, but solving a problem that people didn't know could be solved that way.
mm. Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting area, that sort of drive to solve problems. Does that, I mean, sorry, we're kind of stepping back a bit, but does that come from your childhood, or is it, I mean, where does that drive to fix problems come from?
That's a fantastic question. I've always been a problem solver. I always loved puzzles and chess and things like that. I've got a rather tactical mind. I only played American football for one season, believe it or not, because I
Mm.
switched schools and moved to ice hockey in the autumn, very traditional sport from where I grew up in New England. And And before, during, and after that year, for a very long time, I used to sit in the back of class, any class, and doodle football plays, American football plays, right? The tactics are fairly sophisticated, fairly scripted,
Right.
and the offense is pre-scripted, the defense is reactive and conditional. And I used to study the deep tactical books when I was 12, and I loved it. And so solving problems has always been something that motivates me. I think it's also a very traditionally Jewish trait, that we like to be entrepreneurial and solve market inefficiencies and solve friction points that exist in the market, and as is stereotypically said, profit off of that. And so I think it is something that's probably a bit genetic as well.
I mean, it's a very interesting idea that. Uh, I mean, it's interesting you think it might be related to your Jewish background. I mean, that's a kind of odd thing to say. I mean, what? So sorry. Let's just let me ask you about that.
Sure.
What is it about the Jewish community who have been incredibly successful wherever they've kind of ended up in the world? I mean, what is it about the Jewish kind of community that sort of helps you unlock that problem solving process? I mean, is it something about the culture?
Yeah, so I think if you broke down the world's ethnic groups, right, they would very stereotypically, very traditionally fall into a number of different patterns that you might see, right? Some where they're very industrious, some where they're more typical wage laborers, some where they might be more naturally aristocratic. And my observation of the Jewish peoples historically, and obviously this is a very broad sweeping statement, um, is, as we all know, as a minority, anywhere that they've been outside of the Holy Land, they have been put into a corner, whether prosecuted violently or non-violently, and they've been restricted in the types of jobs that they were allowed to work. So the response to that, the survival mechanism to that, has always been become very good at it.
Mm,
Whatever your options are, whether it's being a merchant, whether that's being a doctor, whether that's being a banker, is become very good at it. Find the market inefficiencies and become so successful at what you're doing that you can both create protection around you, literal
yeah,
protection,
yeah,
but
yeah,
also become relied upon by those who might otherwise be oppressing you. There's a long history, right, of different cultures bringing the Jews into their culture because they needed bankers or something else,
yeah,
and then kicking them out once they became too powerful. And we won't get into that, but I think what that's created is a multi millennia rather pattern of the Jewish people recognizing their own constraints in life and deciding to turn that obstacle into an
yeah,
opportunity.
yeah. It's such an interesting idea that because I mean, it reflects something I believe, which is that you learn to solve problems not from a textbook or from a PowerPoint presentation. You learn
From
to solve
experience.
problems from having problems to solve. And
Yes.
what you're saying is that it's part of the community because the community has had to solve those problems, is what you're sort of saying. I mean, it's
Exactly,
such an
Paul. Yeah.
interesting idea that that has become part of the way the Jewish community
Yeah.
exists and thinks about things. I mean, it's such an interesting idea that, and very probably explains why they've been so successful. Let me ask you, sort of ask you the flip side of that. I mean, when you look back on building the business, I mean, what would you say you've learned from building the business? I mean,
um Resilience has to be the number one. I know that's a very typical answer to give, but when you prove to yourself that you can do hard things, and when you prove to yourself you can overcome extreme challenges and adversity, that changes everything. It changes the way you view
yeah,
yourself. It changes the way you view the world around you. It changes the way you view your life. So that has to be number one. I think number two would be it's evolved the way I view life and happiness and fulfillment, and even the concept of wealth. Right, I'm a startup founder. I pay myself pretty terribly right now, and I grew up very much middle class. Was a scholarship kid through my PhD, and when you launch a business, by nature of having to work with investors, you end up surrounding yourself with extraordinarily successful and wealthy individuals.
mm,
And I know people worth 100 million who are incredibly happy and well adjusted. I know and work closely with people who are worth 4 billion that are pretty perpetually unhappy, God
mm,
bless them, because all their friends are worth 10 billion and they feel that they're not on their level. And so you see the whole range, and you see, I don't want to get into the whole money doesn't buy happiness, because that is a lie. It's an absolute lie. Money buys a lot of things that make being happy easier.
mm.
It's a that is an objective fact, I believe. Um, but there is a massive point of diminishing returns, and you do the exercise of, first you get off the ground and you're seeing all these headlines of these people raising big rounds or doing big exits, and you make friends with, a lot of our early angel investors were people who had recently had exits and were looking to put that capital to work, and you see the lives that they're living, and you think, gosh, that is the be all end all, and then you realize,
Mm.
well, not that much changes, right? I mean, maybe you stay in nicer hotels, maybe you get to have a house cleaner come twice a week instead of once a month or something like that, but you don't change that much. So that causes you to reframe, what am I actually aiming at? What will make me
Mm.
happy? Now, I'm aiming as high with Gemini Sports as I ever have in terms of the outcome that we want to produce. But I've recognized that there's different reasons for what you're aiming at and
Mm.
different time horizons that might make sense to an individual. Because most of my angel investors are not anywhere near approximately their first big win where they made their first money. They're on their fourth, fifth, or sixth company or iteration or project or career direction. And so you see how just getting that first big win in life is actually critically important. And so forgive the soapbox on that particular topic, but I think I've learned to really refactor how I view goals in life, and the relationship to money will inevitably change when you go from barely having ever made low six figures in your career on a salary to dealing with billionaires on a regular basis. That has to change the way you relate to money.
Mm.
The final thing I've learned, Paul, is just a bit of human nature around. I think when I was younger, I thought of people as friends and foes. I thought of people as, this is a good person, that's a bad person. That's someone who's good to work with, that's someone who's bad to work with. And I realized whether you're thinking about an executive hire that's not working out, or an investor that you have 800 twists and turns in your relationship with them, people are sophisticated, people are nuanced. The reasons you would or wouldn't have a productive relationship are so multifactorial. And you can have, again, so many twists and turns in the journey with a person
Mm.
that you wouldn't predict. And I think when I was younger, and I don't know if this is personal or if this is common, but I really thought you're either friends with this person or you're not, and you have a relationship and then it ends. And in business, I've learned that things are going to have so many chapters to the story, but also that business is business, and that you can think extremely well of one another and love working together, but also realize it doesn't make sense to work together. I've had an executive recently who I would, I would move mountains to have them in our C-suite full time, but we actually realized after 3 months they were better off continuing to build their agency and working half time with us on a number of different projects. And like, we personally adore one another and we love working together. And I think 10 years ago I would have really struggled with that concept, but today it's just part of business.
Yeah, it's funny how you learn those things, isn't it? Let me just take one step back. You mentioned about how it's changed the way you view setting goals. So, what did you mean by that?
Yeah, I think understanding what you're aiming at and what makes you happy and what's going to fulfill you and what's going to feel like you achieve something evolves a lot. And I something that I see a lot is ideation phase entrepreneurs, and they think that they're sure what the product's going to be. They're certain, and everyone tells them it's going
Yeah.
to change 5 times, and they say, no, I've got it all figured out, and it changes 5 times. And I think goals are similar, right? I laugh now at how unclear I was about what the product was going to be when I first started. It's comical, really. And same happens when you think, well, this is what I'm aiming at in life. This is what I want to do in life.
Mm.
And a couple of years can go by, and I'll sit down with my wife and say, what are we aiming at? Right? We know the feeling, we know the sensation, we know some of the elements, we know some of the values, we know most of the values, but really, what are the nuts and bolts? What are the logistics? What are the puzzle pieces?
Mm.
Let's paint this picture. I'm not abusing all the metaphors here, and so I think it's just interesting how you can reframe those as you go and
Mm.
continually iterate and narrow them down, but also how they'll change. Right? I'm not saying I ever wanted to be a billionaire. The ones I know are, they have more headaches than they have joy often.
Mm.
And I wouldn't ever want to be a famous person. It's miserable, absolutely miserable. But I think what creates happiness and what creates a fulfilling next, let's say, 4 decades of my life, is probably different than I thought it was 4 years ago.
Mm. I mean, I think what you've touched on is one of the things that makes business so interesting, actually, because it evolves constantly. And that means you have to evolve with it, which is really what you're getting at, is that you might start out wanting to achieve this, and then you find a few years down the track that you want to achieve something else. I mean, and that's part of the evolution because you're part of the business or the business is part of you.
Yeah,
Perhaps it depends which way you look.
yeah.
I always
Sorry,
think
Paul.
that's a very
Can I
interesting
just
point.
add something to that?
Go on.
Sorry, can I just add something to that? When I look at exited founders who I know, some of them obviously go and make a second, third, fourth, and fifth business in their
Yeah,
career, and some of them play golf all day. And I bet there is almost no correlation between what people would have predicted, which path they go down, and which path they actually go down.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm sure that's right because you figure those things out as you go along. I think is
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
it's very difficult to work that out at the beginning. Um,
I always tell people, when I sell Gemini, I want to run an alpaca farm, right? Or something like that. And then everyone looks at me and says, no way. You got that second, third, and fourth business idea already ready to go.
yeah, a couple of questions before we wind up, then, Jake. So, if you look back on the journey, if you were going to start again, is there anything you'd perhaps do differently, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, I'll bore your audience with a few heuristics that they will have heard, and I would just emphasize you are not an exception to this. You shouldn't heed this advice. Raise more money than you think you need.
Yeah,
Make
yeah,
it
yeah,
last longer than you think it needs to last. Be much slower in hiring than you think. And I don't mean putting people through more interviews. I mean, you think you need a role, but do you actually?
mm,
And just because someone looks like the right profile doesn't mean they actually are. Um, and culture will not figure itself out. You have to lead it every step of the way. It
yeah,
requires more love than you ever think it does. Um, and an interesting one is don't pitch for sales before your product's really ready. I know that that's a divisive one. And on one hand, I do believe in the power of getting on board early adopters who are okay with the warts and will go on the journey with you. That's critical. You can't live without that. But there were teams that I had pitched and frankly made a fool of myself 2 years before I had to come back around to them and say, no, really, you should take a look at this. And I don't know how much that's actually hurt the business, but it's made it harder. And I think people should really think hard about that. You can build relationships, you can get people excited about what you do, but if you push for an actual commercial relationship before you're ready, that can hinder your future processes. Um, I think the final advice would be, and I've had people laugh when they hear this because they were the ones saying it to me, is if you think you don't need marketing or that you can half-ass marketing, your startup will die.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that also applies to sales, actually.
Correct.
You've got to understand. I mean, there's very few founders I've met that have been successful that can't sell, aren't fairly naturally good salespeople. I mean, some of them learn stuff, but a lot of
Yeah.
them are pretty good at sales. It just kind of
I
comes with the territory.
I never sold so much as a paperclip before I started this business, and I've had to learn it from scratch. I'm still learning every day. I'm looking at my bookshelf over the screen. I'd say the book called Founding Sales, The Challenger Sale,
Yeah, yeah,
Crossing the Chasm is a personal favorite, and then Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. One final question, then: if you were to offer a critical piece of advice to somebody just starting out, what would it be?
Make sure you absolutely love this and that you're not doing this for fame, fortune, or because you don't know what else to do or because you don't want to have a job, because it's going to be a long journey. And so
Yes.
make sure you absolutely love it. And I'm going to cheat and give two answers and just reiterate again, make absolutely certain that you have only incredible humans around you because you're going to go through stuff together.
Yeah, I mean, well, some great pieces of advice there, particularly your point about surround yourself with good people. I mean, that seems to me to always be a good piece of advice, and whether you're starting a
It's
company or
just
doing
it's just
anything
funny,
else.
Paul. Yeah, sorry, because we hear that advice over and over, and then we say, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, that guy or that gal's a good person. It's like, are you sure?
yeah, yeah,
How sure are you really? And we can never be sure, right? But maybe the other one would just be, or the flip side of that coin is, when you encounter good people, do not take them for granted. Treasure them, reward them,
yeah,
overcompensate them.
yeah. Jake, some great advice. Really appreciate you making a bit of time to come and talk to us. I've no doubt Gemini Sports is going to be really successful because I think what you're doing will help those clubs make the kind of progress that they want to make, and they're the kind of people that want to make progress, aren't they? So I'm sure it's going to be a big success. So thank you for making a bit of time to come talk to us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Cheers. See you soon, Jake. Bye bye.
Thank you.